Welcome back to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name's Ben and I'm an alcoholic. Congratulations, we are chipping away at this, Big Daddy. So we're on page 65 of How It Works now. We're in the middle of our 4-step. And so if you made it this far, congratulations, you're getting there. Let's just keep at it. Let's dive right in here. So we're at the very bottom of page 65, assuming you finished your Affects My column. So it says, we went back through our lives. This is the last paragraph on 65. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. Now that's important. If it's something you're wanting to leave off of here, it needs to go on there. There's no reason to leave something off. As sponsors, we've seen it all. We've heard it all. And in many cases, we've done it all. In my case, I've done most. I haven't done it all, but I've done a lot of it. And if there's a name for it, you're not creating this. You know what I'm saying? It's been done before if there's a name to it. So just put it on there. I had one sponsee that he wanted to do a blacklist, of all this stuff that he didn't want to talk about. And I said, that's fine. You can do it. Jot it down. Make yourself a blacklist. Where do you think we started? When we did a fifth step, we started with the blacklist. Like, just get it over with. Get it done. Get that crap out of there. Take the trash out. Be thorough. Be honest. All that weird stuff that's on there that you don't want to talk about, put that down, man. Put it down. Be forgiven for this stuff. Take the trash out. Then it says, when we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us, and so we stayed sore. We're upset. Says sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. Says it's plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? So what is that? What does all that stuff mean there? Hang on, let me pull up futile just to make sure I'm getting these definitions as accurate as possible. So futile means incapable of producing any result or pointless. That's what futile means. Deep resentment leads to a life of futility or a pointless life, and it's unhappy. And then it says to the precise extent that we permit these, deep resentments, we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. As I was saying, you have this beautiful day, right? You have this beautiful life in front of you that we're so fortunate to have. And let's say, the classic is cutting me off in traffic, but, actually, screw it. Let's just go with that. Let's just say somebody cuts me off in traffic, and I just get bent out of shape about that. And now all I can think about is that guy in the red truck that cut me off for the rest of the day. I'm just like, God, and it's a weird example, but people use it all the time. The more realistic ones are going to be relational things. If somebody doesn't meet your expectation, or they do something or say something you don't like, something along those lines, and you get upset about it, and you stay upset all day, all week, all month, all year about it. That's more realistic for what it is that we're talking about here. And so rather than enjoy your life, and maybe, I don't know if you have kids or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it is, rather than enjoy these moments and enjoy the movie and enjoy work and get better at yourself and in your life, you're just plotting. You're in your head just churning up all this stuff of what you should have said, what you should have done, and how you're going to get back at this person and all that, because it's chess, not checkers. I'm going to get back to him, but that's what we're looking at here. We're just wasting our life, wasting our time being upset rather than enjoying it. It says, but with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. Okay, so now we're talking about consequences there. Infinitely grave. that means forever deadly. It's not going to change. It's not like once you get 5 years or 10 years, suddenly you can start getting pissed off at everybody again. It's infinitely grave. It will forever take us to the grave. It says we found that it's fatal. Okay, so here we are with our redundancy, our recurring themes to make sure that we get the hint. It says, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. So one of my sponsees, Bob, got to give you a shout out, man, for this, was talking about being on the beam, off the beam. And I always had this conception, as many of us may, that being on the beam was kind of like being on a balance beam, you know? And there's this little thing on the beam, you know, where it's talking about hope, love, duty, faith, courage, charity, patience, sympathy, kindness, generosity, aspiration, and forgiveness. And those being the traits of being on the beam. And off the beam is resentment, obviously, number one. Fear, envy, worry, anger, greed, vanity, hatred, jealousy, criticism, prejudice, and selfishness are off the beam. He was talking about, rather than it being like a balancing beam, it's more of like being in the beam of light. And I love that. I love that concept of being in the light, in the sunlight, in the beam of sunlight, of not being blocked from the sunlight. For when I'm selfish, when I'm envious, anger, vanity, blah, 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 I'm in the shade. You see, and it's cold, and I'm alone, and all this stuff, and it sucks, right? I'm shut off from the sunlight of the Spirit. So I hope that you get as much out of that little 2 millimeter shift as me. So then what happens whenever we're in our cold, and when we're in the shade? It says the insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. What happens then? It says, and with us to drink is to die. So we say infinitely, grave, fatal, and die, all in one paragraph. So we're talking about some pretty serious side effects here of being angry. I mean, I didn't know. I had no idea that anger was such a big deal before I came in here. I mean, I knew it was, not great, but I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know that it was deadly. That's pretty intense, right? But I don't know. Maybe they changed their tone here. So let's move on. It says, if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. Okay, so they haven't changed their tone. They're saying if I want to stay alive, if I don't want to die, I can't be angry. Oh my God. So never be angry again? That's what you're saying? Well, yeah, that's a pretty high spiritual, lofty thing. But that's why we say we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. It's not possible to never be angry again from my standpoint. Maybe for you, maybe you're that kind of guy. Not me, man. I do my best. I still get upset sometimes, but I know this is bad and I got to get out of this ASAP. And so we're about to go over what they call the sick man's prayer, one of the 4-step prayers involved. You can also use it in the 10-step, this sick man's prayer. Anyways, moving on, it says the grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. And by brainstorming, they're not talking about thinking up like new ideas of, how to cure disease or whatever, change your business. Brainstorm back then meant more of like a chaotic mind, like a thunderstorm in your mind. And that's what they're meaning here. So it says that may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. What does poison do? Poison kills you. So this is the 4th time they've talked about death and how, in reference to the consequences of resentments. So we turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. There it is again, death, 5 times, killing us. What does fancied or real mean? Fancied means that it may not have ever actually happened. Maybe you just thought that guy was looking at you wrong, but maybe he was looking at the person behind you, and you went over there and, beat his ass or something for looking at you wrong, or whatever the thing is. Maybe you thought somebody stole something from you, but really, you just lost it. you know? That's fancied. And so, I mean, I'm laughing about it, but I mean, there's obviously a lot of cases where there have been some fancy things in your life as well as everybody's that they've gotten upset about that may not have ever happened. It's just all in their mind. So then it says, how can we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We couldn't wish them away any more than alcohol. So this was our course. We realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Interesting. And so, though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. Interesting. So it says, we asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and move on. And it says, when a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. That is what we call the sick man's prayer. This is a sick man. Here's my prayer. So we're starting to amass, an arsenal of prayers now. And you see that makes up a bulk of our spiritual toolbox here, is prayers. And that is a lofty one as well, because anytime I get angry, the first thought is not for me to say, this is a sick man, blah, 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 but that is my goal. And I do hit it sometimes. And when I do, I feel so much better. And I'm so much further away from a drink when I can hit those spiritual marks. So it says we avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We can't be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Okay, so this is our next column. This is the entire right page. And this is controversial, right? A lot of people call it the my part, my part column, but everything to do with this resentment is my fault, right? The resentment is my fault, because if I have a part and you have a part, I'm never going to be free, because you're never going to be. You may never change your part. You most likely never will change your part. This is all my part. Where had I been? And then all these different things. If I want to be free from these resentments, I have to be willing to see my part in this stuff, because well, let's move on to this next paragraph before I get too deep into this. It says, referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes. And here it is. This is where we write down. It says, where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? That's it. So on the right column, here we write selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, question mark on each one. And again, I do shorthand, so it's SDSSF, right? Where was I selfish? And I write these things out on every single right page. And then it says, though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we try to disregard the other person involved entirely. And then the next thing down, skip a couple lines here, as you can see, after frightened, it says, where were we to blame? So what's beautiful about this, where were we to blame, is that it sets us up for the 8th step. So then it says, the inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. On the selfish part, this has to do with the relationship, not every single cause or not every single whatever. We're looking at, like, let's say my mom, where I've been selfish. Maybe I asked too much from her. Maybe I said mean things to her because I wanted to feel better. I wanted her to feel sad like me, so I wanted to bring her down, something like that, where I've been dishonest. I stole things from her. I lied to her about things. Self-seeking, same kind of stuff. Where was I frightened? And so frightened is super important. Where was I afraid in all these things? Was I afraid of not getting something I wanted? Was I afraid of losing something I had? These are very important things to be writing about. And so this is where I want to encourage you to be very prayerful. Be very prayerful and take your time on this. I encourage you to spend at least a week, with about an hour or so each day working on this stuff, working on this column, this page of where you'd been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and where were you to blame. Because this is what you have total control over changing, and what you have a lot of power over praying over for change and stuff. Does that make sense? And so you're just going to write all these guys down, one page at a time, go down it, and spend some time on it again, and be prayerful. If you're not going to be prayerful about it, then don't do it. Just do something else. It's just, you got to do it, man. You got to be prayerful about this part of the process. It will illuminate so many things. It illuminated so many things about my character that I did not know until I saw this stuff. And so again, when we saw the faults, we listed them. This will really set you up for an 8-step, which is something you don't need to worry about at all. But these are your truths. This shows your truths of your character and all these things that where you fall short, and all these new ways that you can make right later on, and ways that we can change ourselves now to not behave in such a way to hurt others now. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I'm going to keep this one seemingly short and sweet, even though I know you probably don't think it is. And so, again, spend some time on this. Spend a week on this before you move on to the next video, and really be very prayerful about it. The next one is very straightforward, and this one's probably the most complicated and introspective. And you can almost even talk to these people about, like, hey, man, what do I owe you some money? Do I owe you some, ask some things. What was I selfish about this? And they might be like, dude, yeah, initiate a conversation if you need to. These people will have no problem telling you about these things by and large. So do whatever you got to do, but get some ink on the paper, man. Get some ink on the paper, turn the page, get some ink on the paper, turn the page, pray, take a break, get some ink on the paper, turn the page, pray, take a break, and then keep on continuing. Just keep on chipping away at this, and you're moving on through it. So congratulations, pat yourself on the back. I've been told that, positive reinforcement's bad, but I don't believe that. I believe that you need a little bit of sunshine right now, and trust me, that it's so much better on the other side of this step. It's so much better. But this is why they talk about going to any lengths and fearless and thorough. We got to be fearless and thorough through this part of the step. And the rubber is on the road, and you can probably feel the friction. So, but you didn't. And don't forget, again, I know I'm probably really repeating myself with this prayer stuff, but continue to bring God into this. Ask Him for everything you need. God, give me patience. God, give me rest. God, help me to see what I need to see. God, just keep praying. Keep bringing God into all this, and it's going to be transformative. So I hope that this video has been helpful, and if not, you can always email me if you have any questions. This part of the 4-step seems to bring up a lot of questions, and if you're having some blanks about something, just leave it. Put a little star on it, and move to the next one. Obviously, you don't want to have 200 stars at this at the end and be like, "Oh, I did the best I could." Give it your best, and put a star if you can't figure something out, and move on. Don't sit there and beat yourself over the head trying to come up with content. Prayer will help you to reveal a lot of the things that you need to see. But by all means, if you're stuck on something, put a star on it and just keep on moving. So I'll see you in the next episode.